What's up, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players? This is the RJB0 coming at you with my Malefic Deck profile. Now, many of you know that I have been ranting and raving about this deck for a long time, but I've never actually given you guys a build. This particular build was inspired by a day when I was just kind of messing around on Shriek and discovered that a very strange version of Gravekeepers had won at a local tournament in Japan. So I made this deck and I took it to locals. It did very well. It would have won that day had I not made a really stupid misplay in my matchup against Insectors in the last round. So let's get to the build. First, we of course have the 3 of each of the good Malefics. I see no reason to run fewer of those, and I see no reason to run any of the crappy Malefics. Moving on, 2 Barbaros and a Gadgetron Dragon. A lot of people I see run 3 Barbaros and 2 Gadgetron Dragon. I just think that clogs way too much, makes the deck really inconsistent. So I tried running 2 and 1, and I found that I was drawing them a lot less often than I did before, which is nice because before I drew them when I really didn't need them. 1 Doomcal and 1 Ryo. These 2 worked out really nicely for me. They're both really good cards this format, and they of course each have their matchup in which they don't really work, in which case I could side out the one that doesn't work for the other. So that was really nice. I run only 1 Veiler because I run 3 Skill Drain, so more than 1 Veiler would just get in the way. I do side deck another Veiler, but I just like the 1. 2 Commandant for consistency. I don't like running 3 Commandant. A lot of people do. I don't understand. I always draw into Commandants when I do that, when I really don't need them. Now this is the really weird part that actually won me a lot of games. I ran 3 Spy and a Descendant. I talked about this engine in a video a few months ago, and it worked awesomely. Because people knew I was running Malefics, so when I put a Necro Valley on the field and set a card, they'd think I was going on the defensive against them, when really I had set a Spy. They'd run into that Spy, they'd usually take some damage, and I'd summon Descendant and go off on them. When I really needed a wall, when I was really in trouble, I could set the Spy and summon another Spy, and they'd have to go through 2 Spies in order to get to my life points. And it just worked out perfectly for me. 2 Gear Town and 3 Necro Valley. Now, a lot of people do this the other way around. I understand that that's more consistent in other builds. I just liked having 3 Necro Valley because it's one of the best anti-meta cards this format. I also run a lot of Gravekeepers. I also run this card, 2 Royal Tribute. Now, a lot of my local is Chaos Dragon and Insector, and both of those decks are just totally hammered by Royal Tribute. The only issue with it is there are also a lot of Dark World players there, and that would end badly if I actually drew it, which I never did, except in a casual match where I opened it against Chaos Dragon, and they scooped. It's just a really awesome meta call right now, so that's why I did that. 3 Terraforming, of course, for consistency, and 1 Duality, once again for consistency. I didn't like running more than 1 because I would draw them when I really needed a boost, but then I couldn't special summon that turn and I would end up in trouble. 1 Duality, gives me that boost at the very beginning of the game and when I need it, but it just doesn't get in the way like having 2 or 3 does. And then I've got Monster Reborn, which, fun fact, if you bring back Barbaros with Monster Reborn, it keeps its 3,000 attack. And there are a lot of good things that you can reborn with Monster Reborn, including your opponent's cards if you're going against Dark World. Dark World and Heavy, pretty standard, just good cards. 3 Drain, 3 Bribes, and a Solemn. Drain is basically the best anti-meta card this format. That and Necro Valley won me more games than anything because my opponent couldn't do anything. 3 Dark Bribes. I don't run MSTs, so this deck is vulnerable to back row, and also this deck relies on a lot of back row, so if my opponent MSTs something I really need, I can Dark Bribe, and this deck already fails at card advantage, so giving my opponent 1 extra card wouldn't hurt me that much. 1 Solemn, I didn't really have that many issues with monsters, and I didn't like running 2 warning because I often had issues with life points, but every once in a while there was just that one summon that I couldn't let go, and I would solemn it or use one of 2 torrentials, which I put in because there are a lot of beat sticks this format, and sometimes their fields just get too big for me to deal with, and I put torrential down, and usually they don't expect it because it's usually not run in this deck, but it doesn't hurt my deck, and it hurts other decks, so I liked the 2 torrential. Moving on to the extra deck, of course the 3 Stardust and the 3 Cyber End, and then 1 Utopia because I run level 4s in here, why not? Then a Decisive Armor and a Scrap Dragon for Extra Gate. Believe it or not, people run Extra Gate at my locals. And then 1 Mistworm and a Catastor because I run level 4s and a Veiler. Why not? And then 1 Black Rose. I had logic behind that. I don't remember what it was. 1 extra deck card that I would like to put in here is Heliopolis. Since I have a lot of level 8s, it just makes sense and I have room for it. 2 macro. If I had been smart, which I didn't think about, I probably would have mained these over Royal Tribute at my locals. It's the one thing that I wish I could change about this deck last Saturday, and I might bring it again to locals this Saturday, but this card is awesome against basically every deck this format except Rabbit, and people don't really run Rabbit at my locals. 2 Shadowmere for the Dark World and Zector matchup. 1 Chain Dis because I only have 1 Deck Devi, and Chain Dis is kind of the second best to that. 1 Deck Devi, 2 Eradicator. The viruses are really the main weapon of the side deck in this deck. Deck Devi is good against Exodia, and it's good against Rabbit and Zector. And Eradicator is devastating to, I don't know, Dark World, Hero, Exodia, Final Countdown, Empty Jar. All those things are just totally wrecked by Eradicator because you can call Spell and they just can't do anything else. Really good cards. Not much more I have to say about that. 1 Allure for extra consistency when I needed it. 2 Zombie Worlds for the in case there was a Rabbit matchup or an Evil matchup, but more importantly against Samurai and Ninjas, because they both really heavily rely on monsters on the field being Warrior type. They can't go for Shien or Blade Armor Ninja while their monsters are zombies. So Zombie World really works. It also worked nicely against Chaos Dragon. 1 Veiler for the Insector matchup. 2 Doomcal also for the Insector matchup. I really hate Insectors, by the way. And I could side Ryo out for those Doomcals. And 1 Ryo for when Doomcal didn't work very well, like against Chaos Dragon. So that's the deck. Hope you guys liked it. And until my next video, I almost told you not to remember to comment, rate, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. This is the RJB0 signing out.